JAVCDs online at pipeorgancds.com with over 70 different titles of famous organists and pipe organs from around the world. May 2nd of 2006, JAV Recordings went to France to record the monumental organ at Saint Ouen and also Saint Sulpice. This podcast is about that recording as well as Alius and its owner, Chris Frommen. We'll start in actual sessions in Rouen, France, and then go to his studio outside of Düsseldorf. Unloading the van into the 13th century sacristy at Saint Ouen, we started setting up a tremendous amount of equipment, a tremendous number of cables, hanging microphones, 11 microphones in all for the surround sound audio. We then tested the equipment and got ready for a night of recording.
Merci. C'est bon.
This is an interview that we did with Chris Frommen in his home, in his recording studio outside of Düsseldorf, Germany, immediately following the recording in Rouen. We discussed his goals, where he sees things going, and how he started his business. Could you tell me, what first interested you in recording the organ?
Well, it was in 1978. I was 12 years old when my father and my uncle took me to Paris to visit some very interesting organs. And in Paris it was Kurt Lüders, who is today one of the artists on my label, who showed us the most prestigious instruments from Cavaillé Hall in Paris. And on this organ tour I really got interested in this instrument. I took some photos, and when we came home the next year in Germany, my father built an organ for his house and I helped him, and that made me even more getting interested in organ. And then I learned playing the organ as an amateur. I had piano lessons before, and I started playing in churches around our village where we lived, but I thought that being a church organist would not be a good thing for me. And as I had always been interested in technique, recording technique, I started to make recordings with a small Sony tape recorder and 2 microphones. And later it was, let's say, in 83, 84, I was 17, 18 years old. I repeatedly went to Paris and played organs and contacted organists, and they made recordings of my playing and of their playing, and I recorded the organs during the masses in the big churches like Saint-Sulpice and Notre Dame. And then I decided to become recording engineer.
Where did you get your training, and how did you start?
I decided to study recording engineering actually at the Düsseldorf Conservatory, and I got there when I was 20 years old. And then it was my friend Frédéric Blanc from Paris at that time who introduced me to the owner of the Motette record label. And it turned out that they were interested in engaging me for recordings. And so when I was 21, 22 years old, I started doing my first professional recordings for the Motette label. And I have done that for several years. Also, I have worked for other labels. And then, of course, you come in contact with artists and you come around a lot. And more people ask me, hey, why couldn't we do something together? You are a good recording engineer and I have interesting projects, and it does not automatically need to be with Motette. And so I got the idea to create my own label, and this actually happened in 1997. I created the Aeolus label and came out with 2 or 3 organ recordings in 1997.
What is your mission in making organ CDs?
Well, when I started with my label, I found that there were too many CDs on the market. I personally found very boring, and I thought that it would be my mission to make high quality CDs with the finest artists, the finest instruments, and of course the best possible recording technique.
Where do you see high-end audio going in the future?
Well, actually, I'm very happy because we have now recording techniques I would not have dreamt of a few years ago. We can do high definition, high resolution sampling, high sampling frequencies, 24-bit or DSD recordings, and multi-channel recordings, and we have the converters, we have fine microphones, we have the SACD, which is a fantastic support for multi-channel audio in high definition, and that's all I want. And I hope that we can make people buy the SACD and go familiar with surround sound.
Where did you make your first SACD?
The first SACD we released was played by Daniel Roth on the famous Cavaillé organ of Saint-Sulpice in Paris.
Why do you think SACDs are better?
I think with SACDs and multi-channel sound we are able to create a much better ambience, and we can transport the acoustic that we find in the room in the churches where we record. It makes sense for me to record organ music in multi-channel surround sound. We have never ever been able before to reproduce really the ambience in a standard stereo setup, and now you can create the atmosphere as if you were in the church, and that's quite fantastic.
Tell us about some of your upcoming projects.
We have just finished a recording with Stephen Tharp, the famous American organist, who played a volume 2 of Jean de Messier's complete organ music. We have done that at the famous Cavaillé organ of Saint-Ouen in Rouen in France, and the first volume was recorded on a big organ in Luxembourg in Düsseldorf, where he played his de Messier's etudes. And then we have a very interesting upcoming release with the complete organ music of the Italian composer who lived in San Francisco, Mario Castelnuovo Tedesco, played by Livia Mazzanti at the famous Tonhalle organ at Zurich.